I remember the exact moment my life ended, and the strange, impossible moment it began again. 1 second, I was just a normal man, a tired office worker, living alone in a cramped apartment, scrolling through web novels late at night. The kind of guy no one notices. No girlfriend, no close friends, just work, sleep, repeat, and then pain. A sharp, blinding pain in my chest. Darkness swallowed everything. When I opened my eyes again, I was no longer myself. The ceiling above me was carved with gold patterns. Silk curtains surrounded a massive bed. My body felt wrong, heavier, stronger, but unfamiliar. When I raised my hand, it wasn't mine. Long fingers, pale skin, a ring I had never seen before. And then the memories hit. Not mine, someone else's. A king, a cruel, feared alpha king. A man known across the empire not for kindness, but for ruthlessness. Someone who treated people like tools, especially omegas. My breath caught as I sat up. No way, I whispered. I had transmigrated. Not into a hero, not into a kind noble, but into a trash alpha king. And the worst part? I knew exactly which story this was. A dark, tragic BL novel I had read weeks ago. In that story, the alpha king was hated by everyone. He abused his power, humiliated his consort, and in the end died a miserable death, betrayed and abandoned. And the consort, my heart tightened. The blind Omega consort, a quiet, gentle man who had been forced into marriage for political reasons. He was treated horribly by the original king, ignored, insulted, left alone in cold halls. Until one day, everything changed, because that blind Omega wasn't weak. He was something far more dangerous. An enigma, a rare, powerful existence that could dominate even alphas. And in the original story, he snapped. By the time the king realized it, it was too late. The consort marked him, controlled him, and destroyed everything he had, including his life. "I'm going to die," I muttered, running a hand through my hair. No, I clenched my fists. I'm not going to die. I wasn't that king. I wasn't going to repeat his mistakes. I just had to survive. And to survive, there was one rule. Stay away from the consort. The palace felt suffocating. Servants bowed every time I passed. Guards lowered their heads. Everyone looked afraid. Of me. It made my chest feel heavy. Because I knew why. The original king wasn't just strict. He was cruel. He punished servants for small mistakes. He isolated his consort. He ruled through fear. And now I had to live with that reputation. "Your Majesty," a servant said carefully, "the consort is waiting for you in the East Hall." My steps froze. Of course, the consort. In the story, this was where things began to go wrong. The king would visit him, mock him, and leave him humiliated. And that would slowly build into resentment, into something much darker. I hesitated. If I didn't go, it might raise suspicion. If I went, I might trigger the story. "Fine," I said quietly. The East Hall was quiet. Too quiet. When I entered, I saw him, sitting near the window, dressed in simple white robes. His eyes were closed. No, covered by a thin silk cloth. Blind. At least, that's what everyone believed. He looked fragile, delicate, nothing like the terrifying figure I knew he would become. For a moment, I just stood there, watching him. And then he spoke. "You're here." His voice was calm, soft, but it sent a strange chill down my spine. I forced myself to walk closer. "Yes." Silence filled the space between us. I didn't know what to say. In the original story, this was where the king would insult him, but I couldn't do that. "I heard," he continued, tilting his head slightly, "you've been acting differently." My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "You didn't punish the servant this morning." So word had already spread. "I just didn't feel like it," I said. Another silence. Then, slowly he smiled. It was faint, almost invisible, but it made something in my chest tighten. "You've changed," he said. His words weren't accusing. They were curious. And that made it worse, because I knew he wasn't just observing. He was watching, even without sight. "I'm still the same. I replied, forcing calm into my voice. Are you? His question lingered in the air. For a moment, I felt exposed, like he could see straight through me. I won't hurt you, I said suddenly. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Silence. Then, that's new. There was something strange in his tone. Not relief, not trust, something deeper. Something I couldn't understand. I turned away. I have things to do, I said quickly, walking toward the door. I needed space, distance, time to think. But just as I reached the door, Your Majesty, I stopped. What? Come closer. My body stiffened. Everything in me screamed to refuse. But something I couldn't explain, made me turn back. Slowly, I walked toward him again. Closer, closer, until I stood right in front of him. His head tilted slightly upward. Even with the cloth over his eyes, it felt like he was looking directly at me. And then, he reached out. His fingers brushed my wrist. A simple touch, but it sent a shock through my entire body. My breath caught. What are you? Before I could finish, he pulled me closer. Not forcefully, but firmly, enough that I couldn't pull away in time. And then, a sharp, burning sensation exploded at the back of my neck. My knees nearly gave out. My vision blurred. My entire body felt like it was on fire. What did you do? My voice came out broken, shaky, unfamiliar. His hand rested lightly against my neck, right where the pain burned. Now you won't run away, he said softly. My heart pounded wildly. No, no, this wasn't supposed to happen yet. This was too early. I can't. My body felt weak, heavy, strange. Something inside me was changing. Something I didn't understand. You smell different now, he murmured. His voice was closer. Too close. You're not like before. I tried to push him away, but my strength was fading. What did you do to me? He leaned closer, his lips near my ear. I marked you. The world went silent. My mind went blank. Marked? That was impossible. Only alphas marked omegas. That was the rule. That was the world I knew. So why does your body react like this? He whispered. I couldn't answer, because I didn't know. All I knew was, my heart was racing. My body felt hot, unstable, wrong. And somewhere deep inside, something had changed. Something irreversible. You don't understand yet, he said quietly. His hand gently brushed my hair back. But you will. My vision darkened. My body finally gave out. And as I fell, the last thing I felt was his arms catching me, and the faintest whisper against my skin. You're mine now. When I woke up, the world felt wrong. Not in the way it had when I first transmigrated. This was deeper. My body felt unfamiliar again, but this time, it wasn't because it belonged to someone else. It was because something inside it had changed. I lay still, staring at the ceiling, trying to steady my breathing. My heart was racing, slower than before, but still uneven, like it didn't belong to me anymore. Then I felt it, a faint warmth at the back of my neck. My hand moved instinctively, fingers trembling as they brushed against the spot. The mark. I froze. Memories from the novel flashed through my mind. Marking, bonding control. But this wasn't supposed to happen like this. Not to me. Not to an alpha. I'm awake. His voice. Soft. Calm. Too close. I turned my head slowly. He was sitting beside the bed. The same white robes. The same blindfold covering his eyes. But now, I couldn't see him the same way. He wasn't fragile. He wasn't harmless. He was the most dangerous person in this palace. What did you do to me? I asked, my voice rough. You already asked that, he replied gently. And you didn't answer properly. A small silence followed. Then he spoke again. I connected us. That's not possible. It already happened. I clenched my fists. No, I said firmly. I'm an alpha. And that single word made my chest tighten. And omegas get marked, I continued, forcing logic into my voice. Not the other way around. He tilted his head slightly. Then why does your body respond to me? I had no answer. because he was right. Even now, just being close to him made something inside me react. My breathing felt heavier, my senses sharper, my thoughts less clear. I didn't force you, he added quietly. That made me look at him sharply. What? You came closer. His words were simple, but they hit harder than anything else. Because they were true, I had stepped closer. I had ignored every instinct telling me to stay away. And now I was paying the price. I need to remove it, I said, trying to sit up. But the moment I moved, a wave of dizziness hit me. My body felt weak, unstable. Before I could fall, his hand gently pressed against my shoulder, guiding me back down. Don't move too much, he said. Don't touch me. The words came out harsher than I intended, but he didn't react. He didn't get angry. He just paused, then slowly withdrew his hand. All right, that made something twist in my chest. I looked away. I don't understand this, I admitted quietly. For the first time since waking up in this world, I felt lost. Not like a king, not like someone in control. Just a man thrown into something he couldn't understand. You don't have to, he said. Then who does? I do. His calm confidence made my stomach tighten. Of course he did. He wasn't just an omega. He was an enigma, a being that didn't follow the normal rules. Why me? I asked. Another silence. Longer this time. Then, because you're not the same. I frowned. What does that mean? You don't smell like him. A chill ran down my spine. You noticed that? I noticed the first day. My breath caught. So he knew. Not everything, but enough. You're not cruel, he continued. You didn't look at me like I was nothing. I didn't know what to say, because he was right again. I wasn't that king. I never could be. I don't want to hurt you, I said again, more quietly this time. I know. That simple answer made my chest feel tight. Then why do this? I asked. Because I don't trust the world, he replied. His voice changed slightly. Still calm, but heavier. Everything here is built on power, on lies, on control. His fingers lightly touched the edge of the bed. I needed something real. Something real. Those words lingered. And you chose me? I asked. Yes. Why? He turned his face slightly toward me. Even without seeing his eyes, I felt it. That strange, intense focus. Because you chose not to hurt me. My throat tightened. It sounded so simple, so small. But in this world, maybe it wasn't. Days passed, but nothing felt normal anymore. The mark didn't disappear. If anything, it grew stronger. I could feel him. Not clearly, not like hearing thoughts, but like a presence, a quiet awareness in the back of my mind. And my body, it kept changing. Subtle at first. Fatigue, sensitivity, moments where my emotions felt overwhelming. I tried to ignore it, tried to act like nothing was wrong. But the palace wasn't blind. They say His Majesty hasn't called for any punishments. They say the consort has been visiting often. Something is different. Whispers follow me everywhere. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a king. I felt like someone losing control. One evening, I found him again in the East Hall, the same place where everything had started. You're avoiding me, he said. I stopped walking. No, I'm not. You are. I sighed. Maybe I am. I stepped closer slowly, not out of impulse this time, but because I needed answers. My body, it's changing. I know. That's not normal. It is for us. For us? Yes. His words made my chest tighten again. You and me, he said simply. I shook my head. No, I didn't choose this. I did. That's not fair. Silence. Then, you can hate me if you want. His voice was quiet, not defensive, not cold, just honest. I won't stop you. That caught me off guard. I expected control, possession, something overwhelming. But instead, he gave me space. And that confused me more than anything else. I don't hate you, I said finally. The words surprised even me, because they were true. I was scared, confused, frustrated. but not hateful. Then what do you feel? He asked softly. I hesitated, because I didn't know. Or maybe I didn't want to admit it. I don't understand you, I said. That's all right. I don't understand myself either. That's also all right. His calm acceptance made something inside me shift, slowly, quietly, like something frozen beginning to melt. That night, everything changed again. The pain came suddenly, sharp, overwhelming. I collapsed to the floor of my chamber, gasping for air. My body felt like it was tearing itself apart. I couldn't even call for help. And then, he was there. I didn't hear him enter. I didn't see him arrive. But suddenly, he was beside me. It's starting, he said quietly. What is... My voice barely came out. His hand gently supported me. It's your body adapting. To what? A small pause. Then, to carrying life? The world stopped. My mind went blank. No. My voice trembled. That's not possible. But deep inside, I already knew. All the signs, all the changes, everything pointed to one truth. You're lying, I whispered. I'm not. Tears blurred my vision. I'm not, I can't. You can. His voice was steady, grounding. You already are. My hands trembled as they moved instinctively, resting over my stomach. It felt the same, nothing different. But somehow, everything was different. I didn't choose this, I said weakly. I know. I'm scared. That was the truth, the raw, honest truth. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly afraid. And then, his hand gently covered mine. Warm, steady. You're not alone. Those words broke something inside me, not in a painful way, but in a way that made everything feel real. I won't let anything happen to you, he said. His voice was quiet, but firm. I chose you. His fingers tightened slightly around mine. And I'll take responsibility. I closed my eyes. My breathing slowly steadied. And for the first time since all of this began, I didn't feel like I was falling apart. I felt like maybe I wasn't alone in this. The days after that night changed everything. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but slowly, quietly, like real life does. At first, I kept expecting things to fall apart, for someone to expose us, for the court to turn against me, for the world to remind me that this wasn't normal. But none of that happened. Instead, life continued, just differently. My body kept changing. There was no denying it anymore. The fatigue became constant. Some mornings, I couldn't even get out of bed without feeling like the ground was spinning. My senses were sharper, my emotions deeper, too deep sometimes. I hated it at first, not because it was wrong, but because it wasn't something I chose, because it reminded me every moment that I had lost control. And yet, every time I felt like I was about to break, he was there, always, not controlling, not forcing, just present. You should eat. I'm not hungry. You said that yesterday, too. I sighed, staring at the untouched tray. I don't feel like it. A pause. Then quietly, then I'll sit here until you do. I glanced at him. He sat calmly beside me, hands resting in his lap, as if he had all the time in the world. You're stubborn, I muttered, and you're avoiding your own needs. That's not the same. It is... I exhaled slowly. In my old life, no one would have insisted like this. No one would have stayed. No one would have noticed. Fine, I said, picking up the food. Not because I wanted to, but because he was there, because he cared. And somehow, that made it easier. The palace had begun to change too. At first, it was just small things. Fewer punishments. Less fear in the servants' eyes. Guards speaking without trembling. Then gradually, it became something else. Something calmer. People started to look at me differently. Not with fear, not with hatred, but with confusion. And slowly, respect. Not for the king I was supposed to be, but for the person I had become. One evening, I stood by the window, watching the sunset paint the sky in soft orange light. You're thinking too much again. His voice came from behind me. I didn't turn. Do you ever regret it? Regret what? Choosing me. Silence. I felt him step closer. Not too close. Just enough. No. The answer came without hesitation. I finally turned to face him. Even now. Yes. Why? He tilted his head slightly. That familiar gesture. The one that once made me uneasy. But now, it felt different. Because you're still here. I frowned. That's your reason? Yes. I let out a small breath. That's a low standard. For me, it isn't. His words were simple, but they carried weight. In a world built on power, betrayal, and survival, staying was not something small. It was everything. Months passed, and eventually, the truth could no longer be hidden. The court found out. Not how, not fully, but enough. Whispers spread like wildfire. The king is carrying a child. That's impossible. This is unnatural. Some were afraid. Some were angry. Some wanted answers. And for the first time since I arrived in this world, I stood in front of them, not as a scared man trying to survive, but as someone who had something to protect. This child is mine. The hall fell silent. Every gaze was on me, judging, waiting, and I will not allow anyone to question its existence. My voice didn't shake. For once, I felt steady, strong, not because I was an alpha king, but because I had chosen something. I won't rule through fear anymore, I continued. But don't mistake that for weakness. A quiet tension filled the air. If anyone has a problem, I paused, then finished calmly. Speak now. No one did. Not a single voice. Not a single protest. Because for the first time, they weren't looking at a tyrant. They were looking at a king who meant what he said. That night, I sat alone, my hand resting lightly over my stomach. It had grown, just slightly, but enough to feel real. Enough to remind me, this wasn't just my story anymore. You did well. I looked up. He stood in the doorway, as always, silent, calm. You heard? I hear everything. I huffed softly. That sounds terrifying. For others, maybe. He stepped closer. Then, slowly, his hand rested over mine, over the small life we had created. You're not afraid anymore, he said. I thought about it, about everything. The confusion, the anger, the fear, and now, this. I still am, I admitted, but not the same way. Explain. I looked at him, really looked, not as a threat, not as someone I needed to avoid, but as someone who had been there through everything. I'm not afraid of you anymore, I said quietly. A small silence followed. Then, good. There was something soft in his voice, something I hadn't heard before. Relief. Time moved forward, like it always does. And one day, everything came full circle. The pain was intense. But this time, I wasn't alone. Breathe. I am breathing. Not like that. You tried doing this. For the first time, he sounded almost amused. You're doing well. That's easy for you to say. My grip tightened around his hand, and he didn't pull away. Not even once. Hours later, a cry filled the room. Small, fragile, alive. I froze, my entire body still. Is it? I couldn't finish the sentence, but I didn't need to. It's healthy. My chest tightened, my eyes burned, and before I realized it, tears slipped down, not from pain, not from fear, but from something else, something deeper, something real. He gently placed the child in my arms. I hesitated, just for a moment, then slowly, I held them, so small, so warm, so ours. I don't know how to do this, I whispered. You learn. What if I fail? You won't. You don't know that. I do. I looked at him. How? He reached out, his fingers brushing lightly against my cheek. Because you're not the man you think you are. My breath caught, and you never were. That night, as everything finally settled, I sat beside him, the child resting peacefully nearby, the palace quiet, the world still. I think I understand now. I said softly. Understand what? Why you chose me. He didn't reply. Just listened. Not because I was strong. Not because I was different. I looked down at my hands, then back at him, but because I stayed. A small silence. Then, yes. I let out a quiet breath, and for the first time since I arrived in this world, everything made sense. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. Enough to feel real. I wasn't the trash alpha king anymore. I wasn't the man who died alone. I wasn't even the person I used to be. I was just someone who had been given a second life and somehow found something worth living for. And this time, I didn't run away. I stayed.